Ellie, what's one of your favourite things about working in sales?
Apart from the money.
Yes, apart from the money. We can get to that later.
We'll get to that in a bit. I love meeting people. I love finding out what other businesses are doing. Like, there's no other role where you can just go and meet with people and be like, tell me all about your business so I can figure out how we can help you.
This is Salesforce Ben Insider, the podcast that brings you all the top Salesforce news, insights, and trends, completely unfiltered. Join me, Ben McCarthy, and some great special guests as we dive into the Salesforce discussions you won't hear anywhere else. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SF Ben Insider, the podcast where we talk about news, trends in the Salesforce ecosystem, and basically information that you're not going to hear anywhere else. And today we're going to be speaking about sales in the Salesforce ecosystem, which is a bit off-piste possibly, but I think it's a really important topic to cover. It's a really important part of the ecosystem, and it's potentially a career path that a lot of people could explore in the ecosystem as well. So I have my guests, Ellie Copp. Thank you for being here.
Nice to meet you. My name is Ellie. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Pracedo. We're an implementation partner.
And Laura, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Zuluaga, and I'm an account executive at Salesforce Mid-Market.
So sales roles are quite an interesting one because they're not exactly easy. They're not for everyone, but it can be a lot of fun. For the right personality, it can really gel with you and not even feel like work. You know, there can be a lot of benefits about it. So Ellie, start us off, because you came from a non-sales background, right, in the ecosystem. So tell us a bit about where you came from and where you kind of got to now.
Yeah, so I used to work for Burberry and I had multiple roles there. But none of them were selling. It was all kind of operational, customer support, that kind of thing. And I was given the Salesforce project as part of the rollout of Service Cloud across our customer-facing teams. So the retail teams and the customer service teams. So we had 5 teams globally. And that's where I got into Salesforce. And then my friend Gareth Stevens started a small consultancy called Cloud Socius. And so I went to work for him to kind of talk about, I went to work for him to take the customer story with me. So to take the Burberry story and really be able to speak confidently and from experience about implementing Service Cloud and kind of working with some of their retail customers. And it went from there. And I think...
So was that a sales role then?
That was a commercial role. So that was a sales manager role. And I was terrified at first. I was awful because I didn't actually know that Salesforce had anything apart from Service Cloud. I kept talking to customers about Service Cloud and they were like, we don't need that. And I was like, well, you don't need Salesforce.
And was that natural for you going from so you obviously knew a bit about Service Cloud, but then you were selling Salesforce. Was it?
I think it's an uncomfortable transition at first because you're only as good as your number in sales. And so you have to have a certain personality type to be able to succeed. You need to be confident. You need to be able to, pivot according to the situation, to the personality type that you're speaking to and pitching to. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider when trying to take a role in sales. And from my perspective, particularly, we are not just product sales, we're service selling. So you need to know not only what the product can do, but also how to make that product fit for a business.
Yeah, makes sense. And then you've kind of progressed up the ladder from there, right? So you've kind of taken...
Yeah, I did. So I went from sales manager there. I then moved over to... Am I allowed to say names of partners?
Yeah, go for
Fine.
it.
Went to Empower, where I met you.
Yes.
Nice. You were my boss, technically. Holocratically speaking. So I went to Empower and worked there as sales director, and then Matt Schutz, who's the CEO of Pracedo, contacted me to come and join as the sales director in the UK. And then my remit has grown. I've been with Pracedo for 5 years. I absolutely love it. My remit has grown from sales director UK to chief revenue officer across our global operations.
Very cool. And because you came from a semi-technical background, I remember when you were at Empower, you knew a lot more about the product than quite a lot of Salesforce salespeople. And I was similar because I joined Empower as a consultant, but then started selling quite quickly. Yeah. And I just found it was pretty natural for me, even though I'd never been in a sales role like that, because I knew so much about the product.
Yeah.
So I didn't even really need to sell. I just need to talk about the benefits of the platform, which I knew anyway.
Which is why I don't think you can be in a services role if you don't know the product inside out. Because, you know, I've worked with Laura a lot, and AEs know the product capabilities. Laura's an exception because she's got a different background, I would say, to most AEs. But they don't necessarily know how to take that product and, you know, basically build it up for specific customers, what it can't do, what the actual product restrictions are versus what is shown in these shiny new demos, the reality of a customer's budget versus their requirements and how you manage that conversation. We've got a really difficult role because we have to keep the customer happy and really make sure that we're doing right by them, but we also have to keep Salesforce happy because ultimately, you know, they're the whale, they're the mothership. We don't have jobs, we don't have projects without them, and so you have to find a way to kind of work in this trifecta of engagement.
Yeah, which is why I think this conversation is so interesting for the general Salesforce ecosystem, because it's definitely not for everyone, but for a portion of people, it could be a great career path.
Yeah, I think Laura, you've had quite an interesting.
Yeah. So actually, for me, this is officially my first sales role. So obviously, I started my career out in Salesforce back in Canada, hence the accent. And that was for a partner that now has been acquired by Salesforce. But that was my first job ever. And I remember like furiously Googling what Salesforce did and like watching YouTube. Like, I mean, I was fresh out of college as well. So it was my first ever job and I just never left. And then I worked as a consultant for a few years in Canada. And then obviously I got a quarter-life crisis and decided to move to the UK, where we all met at Empower, and continued my career as a project manager and as a consultant. And then from there, at that point, I kind of got the taste for sales just because I got to a point where I was leading the team and I was supporting a lot of pre-sales activities and supporting a lot of the deals that Empower sold. And it got to a certain point where I'm like, maybe I can do that job. And then, so I decided, right, my next move, hopefully will be getting me closer to that. And at the time, I did interview for a partner for a sales job and also for Salesforce for a solution engineer job, which is also in the sales department, but in the pre-sales support. So they're essentially the ones that know what the technology does and build a demo and kind of help align the requirements with what the solution actually does. And I got both jobs, but I decided to then go for the solution engineer job just because I wanted to be part of, Salesforce is such a wonderful organization to work for. And then I did another 2 years there where I got to work along with my AEs who were wonderful. I got to work along in Salesforce and then have access to all the learnings and stuff that you have available when you're an internal employee. And then I guess in Q2, I approached actually one of the sales managers that I had been working with as a solution engineer. And I thought, hey, what do you think about me in a sales role? And I have to say, my boss is wonderful. Like, he was so supportive from the beginning. He's like, yeah, absolutely, would love it. Interview and let's see how it goes. And here I am. Yeah.
So, I think it's funny how many, well, not funny, I think it's actually quite very natural for how many consultants go to be a solution engineer because it gets you out of the project, right?
Yeah.
You're not like,
that's so true. Like you kind of do your time as a consultant and you're like, right, I'm burnt out. I need like my life back.
But you need to be good to be a solution engineer. You can't be an admin for a year, junior, and then go to solution because you need to know the product inside out.
Yeah, you do.
You need to know how to speak with clients. You know, ultimately you could be selling a deal worth millions, so you can't mess it up by saying something dumb or,
Well, you need to be able to pitch as well. It's not just about...
Exactly.
You need to be able to... Like, the presenter skills that are needed to be an SE are next level. Yeah. We love working with SEs because they're kind of the conduit between, the big shiny, Salesforce dream and the partner, and then you've got this kind of element in the middle, which is the dream being sold, but in some element of reality.
No, we definitely always say that the solution engineers team is like the conscious of the sales team. So they're always being like, doesn't do that. Like, don't tell them that. That's not going to work. Yeah. So I know I loved my time as a solution engineer and I learned so much, but I think I still had an itch to scratch. And I have to say, my background now, as having come from consultancy and having come from the solution engineer world, moving into the AE role, has been just so helpful because when I get on a call with a customer right away, I can begin to do discovery myself just because I know what the partner needs, what I would have needed as an SE, and then I can give pretty detailed notes to my SE of what I want them to showcase back to the customer. I worked with Ellie on a deal previously, and I was able to give her a reverse demo of the demo that my AC did for my customer, and just be able to say, like, do you see what the vision is that we're trying to build?
Which is so rare.
We were able to like call out the areas, like this area, this is something that we specified they have to do through code, but now you have to go and think how you're going to make that actually work with code. So it was just really strategic, and you can, I guess you just have a lot more control on what's going to happen because you really understand the product and what the rest of the team has to do to support you.
Is that why you wanted to switch roles? Because you had a bit more control? Because as an SE, you're always secondary. I mean, you can be leading meetings and stuff, but you're kind of secondary to the AE. That's
absolutely why I moved. So I think as an SE, I thought, I loved my AE so much, but you really are just a backup dancer. Well, not the backup dancer, no, like actually.
You're like a cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just done a massive disservice to my entire org. We are like the backbone. So let me take that back. But we are in a supportive capacity. Like at the end of the day, the buck does start with the AE. And what that means then, like my type of personality, like I just wanted to be more involved, and I wanted to own the relationships, and I wanted to be inside of the meetings with the executives that sometimes the supportive team doesn't get invited to. And I just felt like it aligned better with my personality. And then, probably a little bit of naivety of like, oh, like maybe it's not even that hard. And like now a quarter in, God, like AEs do so much.
And the market's not, the market was booming for like a decade, and now it's
exactly.
not.
I almost had to go on an apology tour to my old AEs. Like, guys, I'm sorry. I was hounding you about my deck. Like, I'm sorry. I should have helped you more, because there's just so much noise constantly. Training, pipe updates, deals. And it's just, that is definitely a difficult job.
Yeah, some of the negatives of working in sales there. But Ellie, what's one of your favorite things about working in sales?
Apart from the money.
Yes, apart from the money. We can get to that later.
We'll get to that in a bit. I love meeting people. I love finding out what other businesses are doing. Like, there's no other role where you can just go and meet with people and be like, tell me all about your business so I can figure out how we can help you. At my level, but even at the levels below, since I was a sales manager, I've been having conversations with C-suite at businesses of all shapes and sizes, from the mum and pop shop to kind of businesses with 40,000 employees, and it's everything in between. And I'm a chatty Cathy. I can talk to anyone. I'm so nosy. I ask every question under the sun. And I love working with Salesforce as well, because there's so many interesting teams and so many AEs and SEs from backgrounds, really diverse backgrounds in terms of their experience and lots of industry experience, but also, they're from all over the place. They come from everywhere to come and work in London. And I think for me, I'm a people person, and there's no other job that gets you so much access to people and information as sales.
It's funny because we've spoken about, like, we had a podcast episode on like developers and architects, and how some developers just like to be on their own and just code all day. And then if you go architect level, you have to be a bit more client facing and stuff like that. And it's kind of like the spec, and there's nothing wrong with any of this spectrum, but you have devs who just want to code all day, and then you have, you on the other end who just wants to be out chatting to people all day. So it's a great option for you. And Laura, same question. What's your favorite thing about sales?
It's the same thing though. Like, no. Yeah, that's nice. But it's absolutely that. Like, I do think sales is helping. And I think that specifically there's a lot of industries that are not as far ahead as the others. Like, for example, I looked after built environment, obviously a massive industry, real estate and construction, we really need it. But, there's still a lot of challenges in that industry, or they're still working off Excel, they're still working off Outlook, and just like very simple things like contact management and, pipeline management that make such a big difference that you can just go in, deploy, and you see things change. And now we're in an era of, AI and Gen AI and Agentforce and everything else. But even just the original scope of Salesforce can move the buck so far in certain industries. So I think it's just really fascinating to be part of that transformation.
And you can also have just like we spoke about earlier, you can have a lot of control, right? You are like, of course you rely on other people, but you are kind of in charge of your own destiny. You know, in a project where you're working with lots of different people, you can't single-handedly bring that project to success. You know, you're on a team, but you as an AE, you know, if you're a good salesperson.
Yeah, so you know what, though? I think that's maybe a misconception because you do have so much support internally at Salesforce. And now I've learned that, while it's me having the meetings and setting things up, I feel more like a project manager because I'd be nowhere without my supporting team. Like the other day I was on a call with a customer that was evaluating one of our tools, and my TA was talking to them. I just sat there like, oh, my computer science degree is just gathering dust. I have no idea what's going on here. I've never felt more like a salesperson on a call. I just took notes and like let them know what the action items were, but I added no value. So I think my biggest lesson was, like, the SEs are amazing, the TAs are amazing, even my own management team as well, though, because when things are going really tough, we'll all get together in a room and think through strategies of how to add more value, how to add more support, who can we pull in. And so actually, I think it's been a team effort, and that's been one of the learnings, that you don't have to go at it alone. And definitely helps with the stress of being in sales,
I wrote a few interesting things down about sales, bougie events, expense account, nice dinners. Like, do you know the regatta?
Yeah.
The UK regatta, that's pretty fun. For those that don't know, it's like an annual event organised by Salesforce UK, where every partner buys a boat and then races each other around the Solent in the sea.
My mum always says your job is a joke.
my
It does appear that way sometimes, doesn't it?
It's just, I mean, so we in my team, I've got an alliances manager, and his job is just to wine and dine, build those relationships, make sure that, you know, we've got access to everything. I think the bouginess of it is a blessing and a curse, honestly, because it's exhausting sometimes. Having to go to so many Michelin star restaurants. But no, it is, you know, I think that's another thing that we haven't even touched on. Sales is not a 9 to 5 job.
No.
And I know there's very few 9 to 5 jobs in the Salesforce ecosystem in reality, especially in consultancy. But there are events, there are dinners, there are lunches, there are, you know, launches of projects. It never ends. You know, we sponsor a lot of the quarterly business reviews for Salesforce. We sponsor a lot of the kickoffs for the quarters, for the teams. We do VTOs with them. So it's not just an office job, and you're very rarely kind of sat in the office. You are less so these days post-pandemic, but you are really up and about.
And if you need to get a proposal out by the end of the day and it's 10 p.m. at night, you need to do it.
You've got no choice. You've got no choice. Ultimately, and this is a blessing and a curse, and I know we're gonna talk about money in a bit, but if you don't sell, you don't have commission. And so, and you know, you have to stack those odds. You have to have a certain number of SOWs out. You have to have a certain number of customer engagements. You know, based on your win rate, you know, basically, you know, I have to have, if your win rate is 70%, you know that you have to go way over that, and you have to work it from our perspective with delivery to make sure that that's balancing up with RevRec and everything that goes with that. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration around looking at a role in sales, because
your lifestyle and if it can fit it.
Exactly. I think it is quite tough. And I think you see that working with different grades and different teams in Salesforce, you kind of feel the different energies across those teams based on where they are in their life and kind of the level of salesperson they are as well. It's a lot of, you know, the difference between someone who's got a family and then the difference between, you know, a fresh AE who's come straight in and is just absolutely chomping at the bit to do all these things. And you have to balance all of that as someone who works in a partner, and you vice versa. I'm sure you get forced to come out with us all the time.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, that's the thing. You put a bunch of extroverts together in a room, obviously it's chaos. Yeah. Like the partners want to go out, even together as a team wants to go out. I actually had to set some boundaries, like with myself and work, because you can't make it every day, every night. And every out with colleagues, and obviously that affects your personal life. So my partner and I do have rules of like how many events can I attend, and I do try to balance my personal life and the time that I have for my friends and for my partner, and then the time that you do have to put in, you know, FaceTime with the team and obviously keep that culture alive. But yeah, it has to be a balance because it can suck your life out.
Yeah. But it's funny how much business is done at social events, right? Like, lunches and dinners
It's all relationship based.
It really is, yeah.
And I think that you have to find your rhythm. Like AEs have to know which partners they work well with, and we have to know the same. And every single AE you work with has a different way of engaging, and you might gel with that or you might not. And that's absolutely fine. You don't like as a partner, you can't work with everyone.
Yeah.
There's thousands of you.
Yeah.
You're everywhere.
Yeah, we are.
But if you can find the right level of engagement and you really build that relationship, build that trust, the best thing you can do is have a relationship with an AE where you can say, listen, we need to have a chat. This solution isn't going to work. What you've sold, the budget doesn't match the requirements. That kind of open and honest conversation, because then you're working on it together. I think the worst engagements are where the AE has, and this does happen a lot, they have an agenda around, they have the billions of dollars, access to much bigger discounts than us. Your salary report puts out, the average salaries that we pay consultants, from your basic admin all the way up to, principal, TA. We have to pay them that salary, and we have to make money on top of that, and we have to cover our operating costs, and we have to allow for some contingency within those budgets, because we know not every project's going to go perfectly. And so balancing all of that with an AE who's like, well, they've only got this much money to spend, but they want all of this. Yeah. You have to be able to have that conversation and figure it out together, because otherwise it's just not going to gel very well.
Yeah. And kind of, I would imagine someone that's never worked in sales, kind of, the stereotype of salespeople isn't great. It's like, dodgy car salesman. And I think it's interesting because back in the day, you could use so many dirty tactics to try and get a sale over the line. I forgot what that, those cold, what's it, Wolf of Wall Street? You've seen that, right? Where they're calling people up, trying to get people to invest, and they're just doing it over the phone, convincing people.
Yeah.
But now with the internet, the power's with the customer to do research, find the provider they want to do, blah, blah, blah. So selling has switched from hardcore trying to convince someone to buy something, even if they don't want to kind of solution selling. So like, give us a bit of an insight into how does sales actually work when you're trying to convince someone to buy something?
I think that's one of the biggest things that when I was evaluating the career change that was putting me off actually going into an AE role. And the reason for that is because I thought to myself, like, in good faith, I could just never get on a call and convince that customer to buy something that I know it's not going to be suited for them. Like, that's just not my personality. Even as an SE, like, I would have always advised against that. So I was really worried that maybe I'm not cut out for the role then, if that's the case. And I think I'm so happy that that hasn't really been my experience at all. You really do get to dictate how you engage with the market and how you engage with your customers. It also comes down to your leadership. We have really strong leadership, at least in my team, and they're all about value for the customers. So for us, like, at least the way that I engage with my team, very deep discovery, and so really understanding what is it that they're having challenges with, how we can help. Try to ditch the first call deck. Just sit there and have a conversation and understand, well, what's wrong? Why did they even take the call? And then really right-size them in your head to what would be the right solution. Like, for someone who's net new to Salesforce, you probably don't need to be talking about Data Cloud just because it's a big ticket item. You want to make sure that you're starting them on what was right for them. And what I've found that when I've made that move to consultative selling, and I think, obviously helped by my background, then it's just so much easier. And you ditch the Salesforce slides, ditch the, not to say they're not bad, but focus on them and what are the challenges. And it's just so much easier to have that conversation, so much easier to then sell them on to their next phase that's really going to add value. So I think that for me is what's been most important. I really care about my customers as well. Like, we are friends. Like, some of us, we text now. And it's just like, I can't imagine texting someone and, having that relationship and then turning around a quarter later and then bullying them into something that, just isn't right.
There are some tactics you can use, right? Like, I don't know if it was a Salesforce person that I saw with using this, but it's where you understand their pain points, and then you keep throughout the sales, so you keep using them back to them and kind of challenging them and asking them how are you going to accomplish X, if what are their goals and what are the pain points, and kind of bringing them up quite a lot, because how are they going to do that if they're struggling with X,
I
Y,
think
Z?
People respond better to pain Ben to advantage.
Yeah.
So if I keep telling them like, oh, this really cool thing, what about if we do that? They're like, oh yeah, that sounds nice, Laura, but the economy. If I keep reminding them, actually, it took you 10 hours to, make a report of your customers, which should have been 2 clicks, then that's a lot more intensive. So
I think if you can work with a customer to put a number on the cost of doing nothing over doing the right thing, and Salesforce they've got a team called the business value team. And it's their job to kind of take all of the metrics from the customer and transform that into a business case with, relatively conservative numbers based on external research of their actual product. So I think a lot of the Salesforce Kool-Aid is already being drunk by the customers. If they want it, they can get it. They can get it at Dreamforce, they can get it at World Tour, they can get all the content. I think it really comes down to transforming that into something that makes sense for that customer and is, the dreams are big. Everyone's talking about AI, everyone's talking about Agentforce. If that's not going to solve a challenge for the customer immediately and they've got things that are painful and expensive, doing that first and then adding the bells and whistles is always an easier conversation than the other way around.
Yeah, definitely. And what, we talk kind of quite a lot on the blog about like commercial skills, and commercial skills is quite a good, Salesforce is all about niche, right? If you want to be successful in your career, you need to niche down, whether it's like RevOps or MuleSoft or whatever. And commercial skills are a great kind of niche that you could use in an implementation role, right? You could be an expert at Sales Cloud or RevOps or, really accelerating deal cycles in an end user by optimizing their Sales Cloud or something like that. But commercial skills obviously are a core part of being a salesperson as well. So like, what are commercial skills? Like, what are, I don't know, top 3 commercial skills?
I personally think that you have to be able to adapt in the moment. I think if you're a type of person that really likes structure and has a plan, and that plan has to happen, you are not a commercial person, because not everything's going to go to plan. You have to be able to pivot in the moment. And I think if you don't have that innate ability to react, you shouldn't be doing sales. Negotiation is difficult. It is a topic that is coming for you. Don't be scared of it. It's okay. Customers are going to want to negotiate. You have to be able to stand behind your pricing. You have to be able to, in the way that Laura is saying, I can understand better my customers' challenges and then respond to it with technology that I know is going to work for them. We have to be able to do the same thing in terms of standing behind our delivery team. We can't put an SOW together I'm the same thing. I can't put the dream together if I don't have the delivery team behind me that I know is going to deliver the functionality and a good project. So negotiation and backing your pricing and bringing, really being able to articulate your value. It's difficult to negotiate with customers. And
it's really uncomfortable at first. I love it now though. Like
it's great now.
It's good fun, isn't it? When you know the kind of, like, the tit and tat. And,
well, that's it. And, I've me and my best mate have a phrase that's don't ask, don't get.
Yeah.
And it's Eve. Don't ask, don't get. And I've got a customer who does it all the time. He's a CTO and he asks for everything. And I love it because he asks for something, I want something back. So he rang me yesterday. We're taking the team out for dinner following a massive go live that we did for them. And they're traveling from all over the country. He was like, you're going to put them up in a hotel? I was like, you're going to do a video for us? So it's that kind of like back and forth. Negotiation isn't always about numbers.
Everyone needs to feel like they've won as well. Like,
exactly. And you have
to... So it's a mutual thing. It's not a one person loses.
You have to plan for that. You have to plan. Everyone, especially when you get up into bigger engagements, you're negotiating with the CFO and usually like a procurement team whose job it is to get the best price for the business. So if you haven't anticipated that, if you go in at your max discount from which is what I used to do. I used to be like, oh, don't...
I used to be so scared.
Yeah, you put the SOW across and be like, I'm so sorry. If you don't have that much money, we can do less. It's just so awkward. Whereas now I'm like, this is the value, this is the business case. Our people are good people. If you want a crappy project, I can recommend a bunch of other people that you can go and talk to. If you want the cheapest project, you don't come to Pracedo. We're not the cheapest partner. But if you want a project that is going to be well managed, well delivered, and give you exactly what we've scoped out, then we are the partner for that. And I can honestly sit comfortably in my role, and my team can fit comfortably because we've got such an amazing delivery arm, which is run by our COO, Phil, and our head of professional services, Marcus. And I would say, honestly, I've been there 5 years. I would say the last 18 months in terms of our delivery has been the best that we've ever had it, and it's only getting better.
And it's nice when you've got the confidence to stand behind
that.
100%.
We have all worked for a partner where we knew that what we were selling might not, depending on who was going to be put on the project. Like, it wasn't like we couldn't do it. It's like we've only got one person who is capable of that, and we'd be like, well, can I have? And then you have to move those people around and get them on, and it's not fair to the consultant to spread them so thinly. So it can be uncomfortable. I feel like I've only said 2. Do you want the third one? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, okay. So walk me through them again. So it was negotiations.
Negotiation.
And then adapting. I think communication skills, which is so basic. But sometimes, and I've been really guilty of this recently, I put up a slide. I was so deep in the deal that I put up the slide to try to like showcase the value and showcase the commercials. And then that slide really scared off my customer. They're like, what the hell, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no. But if you look at the fine print, like this is actually, and I think sometimes you get caught up in your own story that you're like, oh, the more information I put here, the more it will explain it. But actually, no, like it should be simple.
Storytelling is another thing.
What's the value? Right? Yeah, exactly. Clear. What's the cost? Like they're not going to sit there for 10 minutes and analyze the slide that you just put together. Yeah, so I think, clear communication skills.
But Salesforce does an amazing job with storytelling. They will get under the hood of a customer and then put together persona-led decks that walk through this visual journey, and it dips in and out.
Jill is a sales manager.
Exactly. And it dips in and out of, the journey you're going on, and then into features and into demos, and
they've really
it's really interactive, and it brings it all to life. And I think taking those roles from beginning to end really brings it to life for the customer, and they can see their business in the demo in front of them. And I think I've seen pictures from other CRMs, and I think Salesforce probably do it the best.
They do. Yeah.
This probably comes under communication, but I remember something that I was taught in PC World when I used to work there when I was 16, and they used to teach you like something +1, and it was basically whoever you're speaking to, you need to match their energy but up a little bit. So if you're speaking to someone really hyperactive, you've got to be hyperactive. But if you're speaking to someone who's a little bit slower, a little bit introvert, then you've got to meet them down there. So I guess that's kind of adapting and communication.
Yeah, exactly. And like that kind of thing is so important. You have to be able to read people.
Do you remember Josh White, CRO at 720?
Yeah.
He used to call it making friends. It was just like, I made another friend at Salesforce.
Well, I mean,
great.
He worked at a customer of ours. We made friends, and then we hired him because we were friends. And now he's, it's you have to be a people person first and foremost. And a lot of people will forgive a lot of things if you have that relationship already. If you have a fractured relationship, and there are AEs who do have kind of really fractured or broken relationships due to various things, and customers are not perfect either, but it could be a missold product, or it could be an uplift in their licenses that they're not happy about. And if you haven't got the relationship that allows you to get over that, you're only going to butt heads constantly around that. And I think with Salesforce, because you have your accounts, it's not like with me, I can go, okay, well, I just put someone else on it.
Yeah, oh no, that business. Anything else that comes up, like we're gonna have to deal with you again.
Yeah,
we can't break up because we're gonna keep meeting.
And I think you've also got to be honest and transparent, right? You know, to build trust. It's if something goes wrong, you've kind of got to put your hands up. Maybe gloss over it a little bit, but tart it up. But ultimately, you've got to be straightforward.
Exactly. I think it's just as long as you genuinely care about people.
Yeah.
Like I was on a deal earlier this year, and after we evaluated, and even though both parties had spent a lot of time evaluating the solution, we realized, you know what, this is actually maybe not the best product mix. And I had to ring them up and say, guys, hands up, like, this is not the one. Like, we thought it was going to be. We had a hypothesis. It turns out that that's not what we would recommend. And it's like, oh, but we wasted so much time. But like, yeah, better than wasting money.
Yeah, I think people
better
appreciate
than like
it.
2
They might be
years
annoyed
in the
or
project.
angry, but they'll get over it quick when they know you've done the right thing. And
Yeah, exactly. So as long as you're always operating in good faith, like mistakes happen, but it's fine. There's always a workaround, and I think that's really important. Yeah.
And there are there's access to a lot of people at Salesforce.
Yeah, there are.
Like if something's going wrong in a project, there are partner sales managers, partner account managers, there's product people, there's customer success managers.
Yeah.
And as a partner, I think previously when we were kind of fresher to it, you would be scared to pull the trigger on some of those conversations. You try and fix it. You try, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. And you we're a perfect partner and our projects are perfect. No, there isn't a project in the world that goes perfectly, and anyone says that there is just full of hot air. But if it's relationships. If you have those relationships with all those people, and you can say, look, guys, even it's not a red account, but it will be if we don't sort out these things, and we need access to your teams. Can we have a conversation about it? Can we see if we can kind of get the customer back on track? Or at least flagging things early on and kind of putting your hands up and saying, I had a conversation last week where I was like, yeah, our project management was not hot on the first part of that project, but then we fixed it and this is the result of it, and it came back on track and now we're in a good spot. I think you have to be able to put your hands up and own up to those things, just be honest, and customers appreciate it too.
Yeah, 100%. So let's round off the podcast with money.
Yay!
So I'm not going to ask you guys your salaries, but we could start with maybe Salesforce, because I think Salesforce, like from what I used to hear from salespeople, it was quite simple. It was kind of 50% base. So you got OTE, right? So on target earnings is essentially what you will earn in total if you hit all your targets, right? Mm-hmm. So what I used to hear with AEs at Salesforce is like, someone in SMB might be on £60,000 or euros, and then they would get kind of double that in on-target earnings if they hit their targets. Is that kind of
I think so.
Similar?
Yeah, I think that's more or less the breakdown. I actually don't think I'm allowed to talk about this. Okay. So yeah, sorry, but I
can.
You know about Salesforce. And then obviously it scales up from there because you have SMB, mid-market, enterprise, where your target is going to go up, and I think it kind of scales up from
that's it. And there's other things in the Salesforce ecosystem, well, in Salesforce and in ours, like you've got new products, you've got things that people need to start taking. People are going to be scared to be the first one that comes into it. Some customers are hands in the air, get me on the beta program, I'm all in. Others need a bit more of a push, and also salespeople need a push. They need to get comfortable with those products. They need to start selling them, and the way to be able to do that, there's a lot of enablement at Salesforce, but they also have spiffs, which is specific incentives that sit on certain products, and we do the same thing based on our business objectives. So we had a RevRec target for this year, and if you're wanting to recognize revenue, you have to sell that revenue at a certain point so that you can deliver it within the financial year. So we put a spiff on the first 6 months that was basically whoever closes the most percentage of their target would win the competition, would win the spiff. I think, listen, Salesforce generally, the ecosystem pays really well. Yeah. But I think for salespeople, you're only as good as your last deal. You have your base salary, which generally isn't going to be as high as the base salaries of delivery people who have their entire salary wrapped up in that. But your potential earnings are through the roof. Yeah. For my team, they earn 4 or 5% of the entire deal. And that depends on whether they've hit their quarter target or not. So 4%, they have a threshold under which they don't earn anything. Then we go to target, and it's a quarterly target overall because, sales cycles go like this and we have fallow months and things like that. And then 5% over target in that quarter.
And obviously a deal could be £1 million.
It's uncapped for my lot. The more you sell, the more you earn. So ultimately, I've got people on the leaderboard who, one of my guys is going to close 2.2 million this month.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's an insane amount of money.
That is an insane amount.
And so he's going to get 4 or 5% of that.
Wow. Insane.
But I mean, they're making money for us, and it's not an easy job.
I think
That's
that's.
not-
Do you remember?
yeah.
Do you remember? I'm not going to name any names, but we had conversations with a previous colleague about kind of arguing why sales deserve to be
100%.
paid more than delivery.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the initial argument, right? It's a bit shocking because sales can earn a lot more than delivery, but without sales,
There is no
nothing
delivery.
happens.
Yeah.
And you have to motivate sales. They're not going to do it for.
But it can also be absolutely soul destroying. So Gareth Stevens, who was our old CEO, used to say it was champagne and razor blades.
Yeah.
You could have the best day of
That's
your
so
life.
good. That is so good.
Yeah, you could have the best day of your life followed by the worst day of your life.
It's
And
like so like high.
and there's no you have to put the same amount of effort into every single deal.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of work, and it may result in nothing. And it can be months and months and months. I met a customer today. We've been talking to them for over a year, and they've still not put pen to paper on anything.
Yeah.
If they do go with everything, it's a fantastic deal. But getting them to that point is literally months and months and months of our lives.
Yeah.
And it's all for free.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
And when you, it's the classic kind of route at Salesforce when you're in maybe not for everyone, but you want to climb the ladder, go from SMB to MM to enterprise to strategic accounts, whatever. And when you're at the top, you might be on a base of say 200,000 whatever pounds or dollars, and then with the potential to earn 5x that or something. But you're working on maybe 1 or 2 deals for the year.
Yeah.
And then with Coca-Cola or some of the biggest accounts in the world, and if they fall through,
You got nothing.
you got your high base.
What you do. But that's,
The
by that
potential's
point,
gone.
lifestyle creep is real.
Yeah, exactly. You might have got a huge payday the year before, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you get taxed
do
loads.
get taxed,
And your tax code
Yeah.
changes because of all the commission stuff, because the HMRC never knows how much you're going to get paid. So, if you get paid, we pay our commission out quarterly, you have a really good payment in one quarter, and then they get confused about which tax code you're supposed to be on. Then you're on emergency tax the next month, and it's chaos at the end of the financial year,
yeah.
which is fun.
Yeah.
I need to do my... Do we still need to do tax return? Oh, I can't remember.
Another podcast.
I do think it's important not to and this is something that I'm learning, because there are so many spiffs and there are so many incentives, but then that does kind of create bad behavior. And I think
in the wrong people,
yeah.
It can. And I've had it, I think with Data Cloud, there was so much confusion last year. I remember having a conversation with you, and you were like, oh, it can do this. And I was like, it cannot do that yet. The roadmap, and you guys were getting a lot of demos that showed the potential of the tool, but the reality of it is what the partner has to deal with.
Yeah.
But if you don't sell it, we can't figure out what the reality is. So we do have to have that kind of incentive to get over the uncomfortableness of selling something new.
Yeah.
But it can lead to missold products or products sold for the wrong reason. So in my example, Data Cloud was sold instead of MuleSoft.
I see.
And really you needed both.
Yeah.
The use case for Data Cloud absolutely is there. They need the unified profile. They've got all these data sources, but they also have loads of custom systems that they need to integrate with. And building those custom APIs into Data Cloud was never going to be a scalable option for them. But, Data Cloud was on a 5-tone spiff. MuleSoft wasn't.
That's the thing. So it's like the spiffs are amazing. And if you're lucky enough to have a deal that matches it, fantastic, and all power to you. But you just really shouldn't position
if a customer doesn't need it.
If your customer doesn't need it, if they need something else, then sell them that, because that deal will come back to haunt you. It will feel really good in that quarter, and you will spend it and feel amazing. And then when you have a red account 2 quarters later, then you realize that was a bad move. So I think, I don't know, my advice would be the spiffs are nice, but ignore them a little bit and focus on that, just because it's nothing more painful than being on a red account call.
And, sales in general, and this is not specific to Salesforce or us, but clawback is a thing.
Oh, yeah, it is.
So
if you sell something and the customer's super unhappy, commission comes back.
Yeah.
What's the most amount of commission you've heard someone getting on a product or a deal overall?
There was that.
I heard about someone, I don't know if you know the same story, someone who walked into a new sales job in Dublin where the sales office was. And the previous AE had a huge Commerce Cloud deal. And this person came along, basically just got the customer to sign in the first week and got like 40 grand commission check, something like that. Obviously not the biggest, but for doing basically no work.
Well, and that can happen, right? And there are account reshuffles and patch recarving, and you can be in sales. I mean, you're probably better off talking about.
Yeah,
she might not be able to.
I mean, to be fair, this is gonna go to PR, to a marketing first, and then they'll have to decide what gets cut and doesn't. But like, you do negotiate splits in Salesforce. Yes. So like when I first took over my patch, I negotiated splits with the guys that were looking after my patch for the deals that were coming in to kind of, give them, exactly, make it equal. So obviously it was my patch and I should be paid on it, but also they had done X amount of work and that should be compensated. I think having gone through a couple split negotiations, they can get quite hairy.
Yeah.
But I think, again, as long as you operate in good faith, like, my manager was really good, and he came in, he kind of gave us the guidelines of like, here's the maternity guidelines for when people come back from paternity leave. Use this as a baseline, and that's what we did. And then we kind of all just moved on. So, but yeah, like you can get lucky. And I got lucky when I got into my patch, and now I'm not as lucky. And it's just that cyclical moment of like,
champagne and razor
champagne and
blades.
razor
Yeah, champagne and raisins.
That's the name of the app, baby.
Yeah, when I first joined, I'm like, this is so good. It's so easy. A quarter later, oh God. So, yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. And,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good luck this quarter.
Thanks.